BC, what's going on, man?
My man Jay, no, how you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Doing good. We had to adjust the time, and we're still getting it in, though.
Getting it in. You had a busy week, I saw. You had a busy
Yeah,
week.
just it's some cool opportunities coming along, and just trying to just keep providing as much content as possible. That's kind of the name of the game for me right now.
I saw you did the Nebraska USA wrestling workout. I did it last week. How'd you feel like I got a chance to watch a little bit of it? It was awesome. How'd you feel like it went?
Yeah, it went good. I started with a little a trip at the start. My Facebook Live wasn't working on my team page, so I had to adjust and kind of maneuver. And me and George worked through it. But yeah, I thought that the teaching part of it went good. I'm starting to get a little bit more of a online coach's style right now. It was super awkward at first.
It is different.
and
It's
and
different.
and the face, like the nice thing, so we've been doing Zoom workouts a couple times a week. And the nice thing about that is you see the other people on there with you, and you
Yeah.
can see and you can kind of hear them and talk with them and interact with them. And then doing it on
Right.
Facebook, you really only have the chat. And while I'm teaching,
Right.
I'm not really checking back in on the chat, checking back and forth. So it's a little bit, I like the Zoom a little bit more because it's more interactive, and you feel like you have that that uh, bond between everybody that's there.
Yeah. I agree. I actually like the Facebook Live a little bit more. I'm going to do a YouTube Live one here probably next weekend, and I'll let you know about that so we can put that out to the peoples.
Yeah,
But I felt like I can get more into what I'm doing when I'm doing the Facebook Live, and I'm just teaching at the group and more of an instructor. Like uh, I'm in the front of the class. Here's what you're going to do, as opposed to I get more involved in watching them, and I'm not as much of a performer as I am when I'm doing the Zoom stuff. So to me, I think the Zoom is better for like one-on-one workouts or coaching, as opposed to like demonstrating a workout. That was more of a presentation than
yeah,
um, than actual feedback and giving instruction. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying?
Yeah, and I like because you have Cade right there, so you're teaching, he's showing, teaching, showing, and then you can have that kind of interaction with any questions that people might have. And for me, just like
Right.
for like teaching and demonstrating at the same time is kind of trying to juggle that balance.
Yeah, it's hard, and I would equate it to um, trying to coach and get a workout at the same time, right? Like you can't run practice and get a workout,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you might think you're getting the same workout as the kids, but you're not getting the same workout. And so I used to try to do that too, and in my later years, I've just started just like I got to get my workout in my own time at a
Yeah.
separate time. This is not my workout. This is me serving these athletes. So, anyways, let's get to the topic of the day.
Yeah. So just kind of thinking about coaching and the impact that we're able to have, and focusing on, what psychological impact does a coach have on a team's success?
Yeah. Well, I think the coaching thing is all about the culture you create, and it's different in every situation that you're in. Um, but it's about the culture. If I think about like Coach Denny, he created a culture that was about accountability. Number one, it was about love and all doing the same thing, almost like a militaristic sort of an environment where there was a top-down chain of command. There's you be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, on time, on task. It was business, but it was also this code of ethics, this brotherhood, this love, and then about achievement and about success and a certain level of expectation to win. You know, it wasn't like we were expected to win every match, but when we went out there, we were expected to win matches, especially in dual situations. So that's a culture. It's something that doesn't have to be said. Um, and I think that affects so much, right? We talk about environment versus heredity. Um, so much of it is environment, and the values and attitudes that you adopt based on the people that you're around. So I think that's a huge responsibility of the coaches, and what an honor to have that responsibility as well. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And your team is going to take on the personality of the person that's leading it, the people that are in charge. So if you got a crummy attitude and you're coming to practice every day as the coach and hemming and hawing or bitching and complaining about things, guess what? Your team is gonna take that on, whether that's right or wrong. It's just it is the way it is, right? Like you think about that saying, you're a sum of your 5 closest friends. Well, in wrestling, you're a sum of the 30 people that are on your team, and that includes the coaches. So having that understanding as a coach that, hey, you're you're the leader, you're the top of the chain of command. They're going to go, everything's going to follow suit. So you better have your stuff together and make sure that the culture and the personality that's coming out is something that you're proud of, and is something that you want to represent you.
Well, and it's in addition to, like, if you have good character and you work hard, it usually ends up being a pretty good program. If you're a character person and you're working hard at bettering yourself and bettering your team, you're going to have a pretty good product, especially over time. And those two things alone. Coach Denny's talked about himself as quality control of the program, quality control. And we were the product, the athletes, and it's his job as quality control to put a good product on the mat. And that never lost. I never lost that. That wasn't lost on me. And I was already kind of thinking about coaching when I was wrestling for him, so I really paid attention to those sort of theme and what was he thinking from his perspective, not just my own perspective as an athlete. So that quality control part is huge, and we're managing the stress for these guys, right? So it's important that we give them the right type of stress every day that's not going to that's going to build them up and not break them down, and is going to address the areas of concern. Like, that's kind of like my main thing is, we get to practice. Let's practice to win. What are we doing today that's going to make us better than we were yesterday? It's going to give us a chance to win more matches, right? So that's addressing problem areas. You don't finish a single leg well, or you're getting stuck on the bottom, or whatever it is, and actually coming in with a plan to deal with that stuff.
Yeah. So linking the psychological approach and the technical approach is something that I think is valuable, to understand, right? Like, you as a coach being able to get into your athlete's head and figure out kind of what are the roadblocks that are stopping us from being able to go, finish that single leg. What is it? Is it a mental thing? Is it a physical thing where we're making a actual mistake? Or is it like, I'm gun shy, or my athlete is gun shy to get underneath somebody and fight for that takedown? They want it to be easy. So how do I, manage that psychological, block right there to get them over the hump? A person that looks great in the practice room, but we get to the competition, all of a sudden they're a little bit hesitant, or that fire is not all the way there. So having, the ability to address that in the wrestling room, like you said, like practice winning, and relaying that to our athletes.
I think that's a great point. And what you just talked about, breaking it up into physical and emotional, and they're really two separate components that work together. But it's okay, how do we actually do that, right? What are the actual things we're going to do? What are the action items, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's two separate things. Like, if you're emotionally strong and tough and you accept the challenge, and you're looking at it as a challenge and not a threat, and you're excited to get out there, well, you're usually going to get the best of what you currently have, right? You're not going to pucker up and choke and not not try your hardest, whether you win or lose, right? Whether you win or lose, you're going to fight with your heart. Um, and but then there's the physical piece of it too. If you really don't understand the position,
Yeah.
if you get lost in there, or if you have a lack of confidence because you haven't practiced the position with enough stress on you. So it's like, if you're struggling with a high crotch finish, we need to put you in there until you figure it out and give you varying degrees of stress. And so now when you get in there in the competition, you're going to feel more confident, and it's going to feel hopefully easier than what you went through in practice, hopefully easier. And chances are that opponent hasn't practiced that position as much as you have, if you turn it around and make it a strength, right?
Right.
You really hammer it and really learn it. And how do you not get good? I put you in a high crotch for an hour and hammer you in there. How you're going to be good at that position, especially eventually.
Right.
But it's being mindful enough and having enough attention to detail to recognize, hey, that's where you're failing. Is it technical? Is it mental? Is it both? Is it lack of confidence? It's probably a combination of all those things.
Mm-hmm.
You agree?
Yeah, I agree with that totally. And just putting athletes and giving them an opportunity to be successful in the room too, right? Like putting them under pressure. But I always like the idea of having, you need somebody in your room that can hammer you a little bit and beat on you. You need somebody that's, like a good scrap 50-50, every day is going to kind of swing a different way. And then you need somebody that you can whip on a little bit and practice your skills and be successful against, and create those positive pathways. Like, oh, I'm good at this. I'm getting better at this, and having those that combination of, it'll keep you humble because somebody's, in there giving you the business every once in a while, but it also create that confidence of that I'm getting better. I'm harnessing this. I'm getting a control of some of the situations that were causing me problems.
There's so many things that Dan Gable said. He's such an influence on wrestling, but really an influence on me. Being from Waterloo, Iowa, initially, and
Are you there? You cut out.
when he was training. So there was really no surprises. And that had a huge impact on me in high school of like, how could I get in every position? And maybe I let this guy pick my leg up all the way, and then I see if I can get out of it. Or, maybe I let him get a quarter of the way behind me, or maybe I let him get a leg in here, especially when you're dominant in the practice room too. Let me put myself in every position so then I can really trust myself in competition to win those positions.
Yeah, no, yeah. And,
Can you hear me?
you cut out just a little bit, but so I would just the gist is, being able to put yourself in positions where you don't have the reps, basically.
Well, putting yourself in every position conceivable in wrestling, right? And trusting yourself to get out of it. And, that takes a lot of mat time. But I was talking about maybe you let him pick your leg up and see if you can get out of it. Maybe you let him get a quarter of the way behind you on a front headlock and you see if you can still beat it. Maybe there's a leg in and you see if you can beat it. And you're challenging yourself all the time. So you really just know all these positions and know your way all the way around the wrestling mat. He would also talk about trying to make himself so tired that he had to crawl out of the wrestling room.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that's hilarious. And I never got that tired. I think I tried a couple times to get myself that tired. I never got that tired. But what a concept, right? What a concept. But I think wrestling's also changed too in training. Is we've sort of moved away from that, and maybe that's not always the best way to get better. And it may shortens your career too. if
Yeah.
you're training like that all the time.
Yeah, and
Because
to me,
you look at commentary, Iowa guys, they don't win 7, 8 world titles. They don't win 3, 4. They usually win one.
mhm.
You know,
But yeah,
maybe
that
Spencer Lee can break that mold.
he definitely could. He's next level. Is he going to be the guy at 57 in 2021?
I sure think so. I think he's the cat's meow. I think the guy's unbelievable. He's probably the most competitive kid I've ever met in my life, on the wrestling mat. So competitive.
Yeah. How much time have you spent around him?
I've worked out with him 3 different times, and then we communicate on through text through the seasons. So I've been in contact with him, and I'll send him stuff, and he'll have a reply back. He's a great kid, super humble, super approachable. His father's awesome.
Mother's
I
like
mean,
a
I think
certified BA, right? Like
that's what I've heard. That's what I've heard.
judo or
Um,
something, I think.
she's a judoku. Ah, I think the first time I met him, he was 15 years old, and he like called me out. We were at one of these camps at the OTC, and he called me out. I want to wrestle you, and was like was shocked when I beat him. He was literally shocked. He was like, "You're so strong." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 35. I'm 35 years old." So, but great guy. Yeah, we'll go to the next question about coaching, because I had some more to add to that.
All right. What am I looking at? Okay, so the next question is, like, so the difference between a well-known coach or a not so well-known coach, like how does that help or hinder a program? And then, like, how do athletes how are their interactions different based on maybe the type of coach that you are?
So I have a lot of thoughts about that. I actually think I'll take it a different route. I think that when you're talking about males and females too, I think guys want to know what you know so they can tell whether or not they should listen to you or respect you.
Mhm.
Where females want to know that you care. They also want to know what you know, but they want to know that you care. Then they'll listen to you.
Yep.
I think the difference between um, coaching guys is, if you have a well-known coach, they're going to probably give you some respect off the top. But then if you're really getting down to what makes a coach really good, because you've seen athletes come out and not be that great at coaches, and not be able to articulate exactly what they're doing, and not really see all the nuance. To me, it's amazing how little I knew about wrestling when I was winning in wrestling. And I knew a lot, but compared to what I know now, it was very little. And then you can see a coach come out and coach, and it's just a whole different level of expertise and explanation, and the teaching piece of it, right? The teaching piece of it. So I think the coaches are just so much better teachers, especially if they've got some coaching chops. They've got some athletes that they've produced, or they've got some teams, or they've got some experiences, and they have some proof and some credentials behind their coaching. I think that they do. I'd much rather see a really organized, thoughtful, insightful coach instruct than just an athlete that can do it well. For the most part. I think the guys that wrestle for John Smith end up all being great clinicians. I mean, I don't know if it must just be through the culture, spending so much time around that program, technique on a whole nother level. It's deep, deep, deep. So, I think women typically pay better close attention to detail, and they're more, for the most part, eager to maybe please the coaches, which I know I personally love. I personally love athletes that want to please me.
Yeah.
So, and it's not like the guys aren't that way either. My best relationships, people like yourself and D Lock and Mauricio, they wanted to please me as well, and that was a good relationship. So, I don't know. What do you think?
No, yeah, I agree. Like, just a great athlete, you know, I've spent ton of time, you know, being able to watch, you know, these really great athletes, and there's just a difference between the way that they teach and handle a room versus a guy or a girl that's an expert coach, right? Like that, there's the difference there to me, and a person that knows how to manage the room and make sure that every athlete is getting better because of their time spent together. You know, there's, you know, just like you said, I want to watch the master teachers and I want to learn from the master teachers versus, you know, the athletes that are, you know, maybe still in the game, like, you know, because once you've gone through it and taught thousands and thousands of athletes at, you know, thousands of practices, and you have that, just like you said, that deep knowledge of what it takes to reach each person. And you can see that in you know, in coaches that have that time and you know, just those like little cues and the way that they speak and the way that they, you know, they handle it, each situation is just, that's what I'm personally looking for. And when you see the athletes that come from coaches that are like that, you see the success at a pretty regular rate. You know what I mean?
And they usually end up being pretty good coaches themselves too, if they choose to go into that line of work. For sure. It's like it's just like your single leg or your double leg. It's all repetitions, right? And so if you're getting a lot of repetitions, but you're doing it in a mindful way, so that gets me to like my main sort of point for the day, and this thing I just keep harping on. This is kind of like my part of my brand personally, is just this deep practice thing, this deliberate practice thing where it's not how you do, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. Obviously what you do makes a difference, but how you're training and how you're being very purposeful about everything and willing to go over it and do it countless number of times until it's right and until it feels right. And then that's your approach on everything. I got a chance. We got a session this earlier this week with Yanni's dad, Elias Diakomahalis. I always screw that up. He's got the hardest name to say. The first name, Elias. I gotta say it like 7 times. It's Diakomahalis. Unbelievable guy, brilliant wrestling coach, really nice guy too, and hilarious. And he is super into marrying the techniques together. Right. So we spent some time. He spent some time with Kate on the Zoom. Awesome. I should have taped it because it was gold.
Yeah.
And I know what I thought I did, but then I went and it didn't tape. But I'll get the next one. And you know, Yanni does that drag single leg stuff where he'll fake a single leg and come back and drag, or fake a drag, come back to single leg.
Yeah.
And just how much time and detail he spends on that position and marrying the two positions together. And so they're almost seamless of one side to the next. And it would be the same concept with almost every skill you do. So like if I have an inside tie and I'm going to hit a high crotch or a swing single, okay, well, I'm going to push, I'm going to snap, and then I'm going to go off of it. But it's mirroring that fake to the pull, back to the push, back to the snap, back and slingshotting those actions together. I mean, really deep, and you can see why Yanni is so his feel is just world class feel. So I can't wait to share some of that stuff with you.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. I actually got to meet him with you in Virginia Beach that year.
That's right. Right. That was fun time.
Yeah, it was great.
We had a couple cocktails together.
Yeah. So with that deep practice, is it him like just going, are you going same setups or same repetition over and over, or is there adding to it and flowing? Okay, now your athlete does, okay, you're going fake, snap, pull. Is it fake snap pull every single time, or is it?
Here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Adjusting?
It's stuff you already know and stuff you already do, but little details and then changing the sequence of it.
Mm,
Right. So,
yeah.
um, like one thing that he caught Cade doing that I didn't necessarily see. One, because I'm doing it with him and I'm not standing on the outside watching him do it, but is like when you go for your fake and then you're not going to take it, but you go to the drag. Don't come back here and drag. Stay right here. Stay down and drag. Um, just little subtle movements with your body and squatting as opposed to maybe faking all the way and just staying close to the leg, right? So one thing we talked about for a while the other day is like keeping your hand close to the leg and like almost, and then you can go get it. He's really into like, if I want an inside tie, I'm going to start on a wrist, or I'm going to start on a wrist. I'm not just going to go get that inside tie, right? And then you're distracting and you're doing things to get back to it. Then you can hit. And so a lot of stuff like that. And like I said, stuff we did back in the day too. It's nothing really different. He's
Right.
just his eyes a little bit different, and he's looking for more European style attacks too. Yanni's not a super explosive, straight ahead wrestler, and
Mm,
so you can tell he's been trained to go on these angles. But like, okay, so if you went fake drag, single leg, okay, now I'm gonna go single leg, back to the drag. Now I'm gonna go fake single leg, back to the drag, back to the single leg, and just changing the sequence, changing the tempo, changing the order, staying down. Really just the way you want to practice. And that's what I would call deep practice as opposed to just general practice. You're not going to do that in a room full of 40 kids.
right.
You know,
No.
and
So,
you could tell them all to do it, even if you had, let's say you had 5 coaches walking around the room too, and
yeah.
you could teach it to the group and you could tell them all, but unless you're standing over that individual group and or those kids are so good and so mature and so smart that they really grasped it and you taught it so well that there's just going to be a lot of kids that are not going to get it on a deep level, a deep practice. So it's goes back to, where's wrestling best learned? It's best learned one-on-one, small group.
Right. And so how important to you then are those, and this could be like you coaching or having, somebody on the outside watching you train with Cade. How important is that? Because, you know, I like having my, like small group lessons or private lessons where I'm not necessarily in it all the time. Like I still like wrestling and I like rolling with kids because you can get that feel and feel, all right, I need your hips in here. I need your head position. Or when you're like you said, when you're dragging, you need to hang there a little bit more, really sell it. But when I can sit on the outside and watch every repetition and see the details of it, I feel like I can coach and teach and really break things down at a higher
Yeah, for sure.
level.
For sure. Because you can't even see everything they're doing when they're doing it on you,
Right.
you know, and I'm looking for the lines of their body. I'm looking for the angles. I'm looking for the tempo and the pause. Is your butt? Where's your head? Where's your back straight? All those little things. And you can't do that while you're in it. You can definitely give them feel though. I think you got to do it all, right? You got to get in there and give them feel. You got to step back and watch them do it from the outside. But it goes back to their willingness to do it over and over again with a high level of intentionality and your willingness and your IQ and your eye to see what they're doing wrong and to make small adjustments and corrections and then give varying degrees of resistance until they can do it against the toughest resistance.
Yep.
Um,
And having that, discipline as a coach to step in and say, no, like that was pretty good, but you're missing this little step, right? I think there's some coaches are quick to just kind of move on and press forward. It's like, oh, that was pretty good. Like, let's go, keep going, and let's add to it. Where I want to let's reel this thing back. Like, let's get every little step, especially while we're training and while we're,
Yep.
In that like small group type setting where, dude, let's get it right. Like I'll spend the whole hour on details.
Yeah, well, it also depends on what type of part of the season you're in. If you're in a learning phase, if you're in a conditioning phase, whatever. If you're peaking for competition, it's just hard to do that during the high school season. It's hard to do that
Everything moves too fast.
during the college season. When you got weight to lose and you got this test to take and you got to study for this, and so that it really has to be done, I think, in a different training phase than the actual season. Even though you're still trying to build during the season, I do think there's paralysis by analysis. I can get caught up in that, where it's like I get so stuck and I want it to be perfect that we don't move on, and we don't, we're allocating too much time of our practice to this specific skill as opposed to, progressing through it. And hey, we'll come back. We'll come back to this. You frozen?
No, I'm good. Are you?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah. No, that I agree. Yeah, there's definitely that tendency to, yeah, just want to be so perfect. But I think, just walking that line, right, and understanding that, sometimes I might get stuck in here, but as long as we, are able to continue to progress and continue to move forward with our skills and with where we're going, right? And I think having a plan, helps me with that, so I don't have where I get stuck in a phase, like, literally working, if it's the high school season, working from the state tournament and working backwards with,
yes,
a lot of the things that I want to do. And it doesn't have to be so structured that, I'm spending a ton of time on this plan, but just having, at this point of the season, this is where we need to be. At this point of the season, this is where we need to be. All right, at this point of the season, now we're peaking for the state tournament, and it's time to win.
Yes. And when you're on fire about coaching and wrestling, then it's not hard to come with a practice plan every day. It drives me crazy when I see coaches come in. Hey, what do you think? Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Well, shoot, I've been thinking about it all day.
Yeah.
I think these 11, 12 things, but I do think, like, if a coach, you hit something on the head when you say, oh yeah, it's good enough, let's move on. It's like, if a coach said that to me, I would take it as an insult. I mean, what do you mean good?
Yeah.
No, look at it again. Look at it again. What's wrong? What can be better? I'm looking for stupendous. I'm not looking for good, and that's on every skill. So, yeah, moving on. What else you got?
The last thing was just the pressure to perform earlier in a career. So our athletes feeling the pressure to have to be successful earlier in their career, and is that causing risk or injury, or putting them, at a disadvantage in the long run?
My response to that is, I think it's all individual case basis. It's all your own individual family culture. And what I do see here in California with a lot of my oldest son's contemporaries was he's caught them, a lot of them, and surpassed a lot of them. And these were kids that were cutting a ton of weight early and were wrestling, 100, 150 matches a year as 8, 9, 10-year-olds. And, I kind of go, I don't know if you need that, in hindsight. I don't know if you need all that. You definitely need to learn how to wrestle at a young age. You need to start to develop some innate level skills and some instincts and some strength and some flexibility and all these, athletic things we need for wrestling. But I don't know if you need to have an 8-year-old traveling the whole country and wrestling 100 matches a year, or 9, or even 10. I think, middle school is a critical period for starting to hammer them a little bit and getting competition and learning how to compete. By the time you get to 8th grade, learning how to cut weight, and not massive amounts of weight, but they learn how to miss a meal and not freak out when they're a 13-year-old. That's going to be easier when you get to high school. I think it depends on your goals for the kid and having realistic but challenging goals. The main thing is that if you're focused on the task of getting better constantly and adding skill and adding strength and just taking the components of wrestling and trying to improve those all the time, like whether it's mental, whether it's strength and endurance, whether it's technique, whether it's your flexibility and your balance, whether it's your power, your athleticism, all these things that we put into the sport. And I'm constantly just trying to improve all of them all the time. And then as you get closer to competition, teaching them how to emotionally deal with the competition. Now you're gonna have success, and it's gonna be more of a task thing, not so threatening. Even because I think that part of it, the threatening part, is something that we don't have to exacerbate at all. It's there, it's there no matter what. It's there. We can talk about being tough and wanting to be the toughest guy in the room, but it should still probably be in more of a task focused type of way, like outworking them, working harder for the tie, fighting harder for what you want. That's what makes you tough, fighting harder for what you want, not conceding, but using technique to move your feet to get to, so focusing on all those things. So then we get what I call a dynamic correspondence, right? It's like the things we're doing in training correspond to competition. I do this, it makes me better at this. And we're not just throwing something against the wall and seeing what sticks. We're not guessing. We're not doing something that is, may be a waste of time at the end of the day. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I'm huge advocate of using that middle school age, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, to be where training and focus ramp up a little bit, and like they're old enough at that time to understand and really kind of put things together in a way that we can get really good, hitting puberty and maturing a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and they understand the game a little bit more. So I love that age group or that age range to kind of pick things up and really focus and now start to apply some of the things that you've been working on in with more pressure. And I think the pressure to win, like that's inevitable. Like if you care about something, if you put time into something, if there's not pressure to win, right? It's not the only thing that matters, but if there's not pressure to win, do you really care about it? Do you really, are you really
You're not really engaged?
What was
Yeah,
that?
go ahead. I said you're not really engaged if you
Yeah,
don't.
exactly.
There's not any sort of energy.
Yes, exactly. So that's the pressure to win. I think it's there. It's unavoidable when you care about something. It's unavoidable when you put that much time into something, when you're training that much, when your training starts to get more and more intense. The pressure to win is inevitable, and it should be there.
Mm-hmm. The harder you train, the harder it is to concede.
Yeah, exactly. And so it comes down to how are we training and how are we approaching this whole thing, whether are we putting focus on the right things, like you said, the task of being great, the task of executing and creating that dynamic relationship. That's where our focus needs to be as coaches, to so that we're preparing our athletes to have a long, lucrative, successful career.
I do think it's important, though, that they have some idea of wrestling before they get to middle school, right? It's not like they sit around and play video games and then in 6th grade you throw them into wrestling. They have to kind of already have accepted it in their mind, I think, once they get to that point. So there's a process of starting it before we get to middle school. It's just how intense are you going to go? It's more of a beginner level, and Yeah. I think, like you said, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint, and we want to keep them in the sport longer. And not everybody's ready to be hard at 10 years old,
Right.
and nor is it necessary. Just to wrap it up, I think I really like this sort of dynamic correspondence idea. Like, okay, however we're training this week, let's focus on being mindful and making sure it corresponds to something we want to see on the mat. And I also think shortening the training sessions too, and keeping them more intense and more focused. And then we're going to keep, right now what I'm seeing is it's starting to get a little stagnant. We're 6 weeks into this, starting the 7th week of this. If we just keep training at the same pace and doing the same things, it's going to get kind of stale. So right about now, I'm looking to change up the programming and do some different things, different things than what we've been doing, which has just been, basic powerlifting, squat, lunge, clean, deadlift, but maybe get away from those for a little while, give his body a chance to rest and the nervous system a chance to rest from lifting such heavy weights all the time, and do more fun, more athletic stuff, and then come back to that in another 3-4 weeks. So.
Yeah, I like that. And then just, keep it fresh. Keep it, the challenges different. The challenges are still there, and the challenges are still, pushing our mental and our physical capabilities, but they're different, so that, it adds that element of fun, and you're still, learning in a sense, as you go through, and it's not just, okay, we got the same thing we did, 6 weeks ago today.
Right. And, a little COVID-19 update. I'm starting to think that hopefully they make the decision just to let us play or let us compete with no fans as a solution this year. And I'm hoping that becomes the common way to look at this, right? Whether it's professional baseball, basketball, or obviously wrestling, what we care about.
Yeah.
That, the immediate solution is, hey, the games must go on, but let's curtail the fans and curtail the people in the stands, and let us still make accomplishments, man. We can watch it all online,
Yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing. I mean, everything's available online nowadays. So if they do choose to go that route, nobody's gonna miss anything, And
Right.
a lot of times watching it on Flow Wrestling is better than sitting up in this top shelf of the Fargo Dome where you can barely see.
I'll tell you what, I'd rather watch the Niners play on TV than go to Levi Stadium any day. So
Yeah, spend $1,000 to sit in the nosebleeds.
bake in the sun, All right, brother. Hey, great talk. I will see you again. We're going to do it Wednesday this week. Yeah.
Yes, we'll get back to Wednesdays.
I'll give you some feedback on Diaco Mahalis when I see him on Thursday. I'm fired up.
Yeah, please do.
All right, bro. Talk to you later.
Yep.
Good one.
See you. Have a good one.